Hello and welcome to PTV World special transmission on the developing situation between India and Pakistan. And earlier we were talking about what is going on in the current situation and in the ways that we can possibly look at different engagements towards de-escalation. Of course, Pakistan has been putting forward its stance of preferring peace and taking out the ways in which we have seen India's false propaganda and fake news being brought forward, and of course the false accusations against Pakistan that have been met with facts and evidence that has been given by Pakistan. At the same time, of course, Pakistan has been calling for independent and neutral investigation into the matter, while we know that many international players, including the UN SC chief and then the countries like the US, Russia and others who have also offered mediation. And this is, of course, extremely important in the current situation that is developing between two nuclear armed states. At the same time, however, Pakistan has also taken on board its own political elements and apprised them of the current situation, and has also made it very, very clear that any misadventure towards Pakistan will be responded with a befitting manner. And this is, of course, extremely important and integral to the way that we have seen unilateral violations take place from India, which of course have been met with reciprocal measures by Pakistan. But of course, Pakistan has been exercising a lot of responsibility and restraint. But at the same time, this is something that has to be understood by India and of course the international community, that Pakistan is fully prepared to respond if there is any attempt made against its sovereignty. So we're going to be taking a look at the way that the current situation is developing and how can we expect this to move on, particularly in terms of efforts towards de-escalation. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been seen analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by former Ambassador Mr. Baluch. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sab, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you because I want your take in terms of the way that Pakistan has been engaging, particularly on the diplomatic front, and the kind of diplomatic engagement we'd be expecting from the international players as well. While of course we know that international violations have taken place on the basis of false allegations by India in the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, we have seen previously also that there hasn't really been much in terms of accountability and action that we can expect from different platforms. So I'm going to ask you both in terms of platforms such as the UNSC. We know that the chief has also offered support in terms of mediation, and of course other international players as well. But let me start first with the UNSC in terms of how this platform exists and in the ways that this violations have taken place, or these irresponsible measures have taken place from India. How does Pakistan put forward and leverage this platform with the current situation, with the evidence that we have against India, against the fake news that is being developed, the false allegations without evidence that are being put forward, and the fact that we're calling for an independent and neutral probe in the matter? What role do you think the UNSC can truly play in this regard? And of course, add to that the Secretary General's offer of mediation.
Thank you, Sana. I think we are at a stage of the crisis where I think the lines have been drawn. Lines have been drawn by the world, essentially. And I think for the good of the people, the teeming millions in India as well as in Pakistan. So I think it will be very difficult for India to impose any military solution or any military campaign against Pakistan, to launch any military action against Pakistan. Because I think if I term it in a different way or phrase it differently, that a country which was looking to isolate diplomatically Pakistan today finds itself strategically at the global level all alone. That narrative has failed to be bought by anybody. And even the closest and closest of their assumed friends, they have refused to buy their alibi. They have refused to take sides. They have counseled India to go for a diplomatic channel. So I think that not only shows that its own like baseless allegation, but more so is the way Pakistan has like given its narrative, exposed hypocrisy of the Indian government, and has exposed actually the pattern of state-sponsored extrajudicial killings in Canada and in other capitals of the world, and including Pakistan as well. So there is this pattern of state policy, and I think the world knows it better than many of us probably sometimes, because they have the resources to do that. Now, with this preamble, going into the U.S. United States Security Council, I think luckily for us that we happen to be one of the non-permanent members for this term, which is again it makes it very easy, or it facilitates to really go through the system. If you're not, although there is a procedure to go and put something on the agenda, but definitely when you are sitting on the table, it's much easier. So I think immediately our mission in the UN has done a tremendous job. The way they immediately got a very, very positive statement out from the United Nations Security Council, and it is so clearly. I'm sure a lot of legwork, a lot of man hours would have been taken to bargain, because I was there in the New York. You fight on each comma, on full free, each word, each full stop. So the way it came out ultimately, I think they said they were sitting on this draft for 2.5 days. So that must have taken a marathon discussion, and also given the assumed leverage of the Indian lobby with certain Western centers of power. That be the case, I think we got a good one. Now, again, we have asked for the United Nations Security Council to convene to discuss the grave threat that Pakistan faces of war, the military campaign, and more than that is the environmental terrorism that is using water as a weapon, and also violation of internationally recognized treaty, Indus Water Treaty, and its continuation of suppression of human rights in illegally Indian occupied Kashmir. I mean, the homes are being blown away, people are being kidnapped, and then their dead bodies are found. In fact, yesterday there was a statement by the former Prime Minister of occupied Kashmir that there were two young Kashmiris. They were taken away for the police interrogation, and the next day they find their dead bodies in a nala. So it's again extrajudicial killing in the same pattern of blasting the home suspected terrorists. But this is the same strategy what we see it in Gaza by Israel. So it looks like they've taken a leaf out of this genocide. So I think now what I am more scared that, and the world has to really watch, is that if India also goes on that killing spree the way we are still seeing for the last now 18 months in Gaza. So I think as far as Pakistan is concerned, I think it's played its card internationally perfectly. We are in sync with the world. There's a tremendous communication. There is a tremendous effort at the level of our ambassadors in important capitals, in Russia, in Washington, uh, in Geneva, I mean, all over. I think our ambassador have done an extremely good job. Ministry of Foreign Affairs has done a great job. Our foreign minister has been in conversation. The prime minister has been talking to them, and of course, the kind of strong messaging that we see from our military leadership has actually beefed up that commitment of the world, a commitment of the nation in front of the world, that we are determined to safeguard our sovereignty, whether it is and security, including the water security. So I think I am so far. I think I should be proud of our institutions, proud of our nation, which has stood together from Kashmir to Karachi, and so I think we should. It's a great moment, but certainly we are faced with a very very difficult enemy, which has to be brought back, and how to bring it down from that level of the escalation ladder they have itself, they have through their own propaganda they have ascended to. So I think they have to find a way out to come down, and this is where I think the Modi government is caught up at this point of time. Yes, Sana.
Right. Ambassador Saab, I also want your take in terms of the ways that Pakistan has put forward the elements of the evidence of state-sponsored terrorism and terrorist networks that India has been involved in and has engaged the international media. While we, of course, talk about what narrative is important, I want your take on how successful this has been and actually the ways that the international community is looking at the current situation and the role that particular countries such as the US and Russia or Iran or even China can play when we talk about the offer of mediation or any sort of influence over India. While, of course, there is a lot of concern over de escalation, over the fact that this is two nuclear armed states that we're talking about, there's also the fact that this is just countries urging both the sides to exercise restraint and sense, but we haven't seen that from India. So what avenue do you think can possibly exert that sort of influence, perhaps the US? And if so, how do you see that happening?
Yeah, see, the mediation efforts have behind the doors, closed door has started. All the channels have been activated. The very fact that our immediate neighbor, Iran's foreign minister, is here, and from here he'll be flying to Delhi. Given in the dynamics of the diplomatic such activity of mediation, is that there would be certainly some kind of understanding that otherwise Iran would put its own reputation at stake. So I think there is some kind of a moment, in my view, or some willingness for India to scale to come down and not escalate further the tension. So I think this is a very welcome move by Iran to play this mediation role. In addition to, I think Iran, Saudi Arabia is playing the role, Russia has been playing the role, US has been, I think, behind the scene. They are doing it. Uh, I think they're even the statements were very, I would say, very balanced. They weren't biased the way India probably miscalculated that the moment it will say Pakistan has done it, everybody will come to scramble to really go on for Pakistan. No, it did not happen. Because it actually exposed further the Indian, I would say, miscalculation, overestimation of its own influence, the global influence that they were paddling all around. The other problem that I see is that now the internal dynamics itself in India has become a big challenge for Modi, because we hear the noises from opposition parties, Congress, and all that. They are criticizing it, that they have really bungled up. They have actually exposed India's entire face, where the state terrorism was actually part of their policy. So I think India, instead of getting Pakistan, seems to me that has really brought itself into disrepute, brought its own credibility under question mark. And I think hopefully that from here, from this point of the crisis, they'll find a way out, some kind of a face saving, maybe given by the people who are in the mediation, by agreeing to, for which Pakistan has already given its approval, or its offer to have some kind of an international inquiry to be done. Even UN, we are ready to get the UN to be involved. So hopefully, if this better sense prevails in India, some kind of a mechanism to reach at the bottom of this gruesome incident in Pahalgam is found out, and then hopefully India climbs down from this escalation ladder, which actually is too good of
If
none of
India
the
does not
partners.
allow that independent and neutral probe to take place, if India does not allow that independent and neutral probe to take place, I want to understand then how is it that we're going to hold a country accountable for the kind of false allegations it has put on another country without any evidence?
But definitely, I think you see, credibility is a very important uh, kind of currency for any state to state relations. So if we continue to expose, this will be yet another evidence. Already we have several, I think, those years with us in which there's a long history of such state such activities against Pakistan. Initially, when in the early 2000s, they had, I don't know, 6 consulates in Afghanistan under Ashraf Ghani, and what they were doing there. So all that is with us. The ongoing insurgency in Afghanistan, in Balochistan, in KPK, even today also they were, I think, shahadat in our ranks, one Sipai, and but they also in turn killed Khawarijin. So I think all that is now an open secret for the world. So I think India will it will take India a lot of effort to again kind of come to that high ground that they were playing their diplomatic game. So I think this has created in a way, a big diplomatic strategic setback for India at the public level and at the narrative level, and that is where I think that is how the international dynamics then shapes the perceptions are shaped, the interaction of the big powers as well, medium and small powers. The reliability of the regime that very state or the very credibility of it. So I think this whole thing seems to be compromised now. It will take India many now a lot of effort and some more years to reclaim that some kind of at least that perception of being a great new India, responsible state, and so on and so forth. All that myth and all that false narrative seem to have crashed to the ground. Yes, Sana.
Yeah,
Right.
Sana, with your permission, Ambassador Baloch, when we talk about today's India, of course, India has a media, the Indian media, if we talk about, of course, they have more than 120 English channels, and of course, in Hindi, they have more than that. Can we say that in today's India, where Indian media revolves around the TRPs and the kind of TRP they gather, it's all because of anti-Muslim, anti-Kashmiris, anti-Pakistan narratives. So, is it highly possible that today's India's government is being driven by the rogue Indian media rather than, Indian media is being driven by the Hindutva's ideology and the RSS Hindutva ideology, and the BJP government is, of course, investing in there, or the same investors who are investing with the BJP, they are the ones who are actually investing in the Indian media industry as well. And as we know that the Indian media industry revolves around TRP, and of course they have a modus operandi which is quite closer to Bollywood movies. So, in this whole context, can we say that if India had a saner Indian media, then we wouldn't have been watching the escalation, the kind of escalation we are watching right now?
No, see, media is always a tool of a government or a regime. Uh, it cannot become I mean, if it has happened, that is the biggest distortion that one could see as a political analyst. That if the media is dictating what policy to adopt to the government, that is a big no for that government. That rather has no then credentials to continue to be in power. That's what makes a political leader a political leader. So I think my understanding of the Indian media is that the quest for control by the BJP and RSS was so much they almost bought up everybody. In fact, today I was reading an article I can share with you also. He's a South African who has been to India on the Indus Water Treaty, who has been an expert with the World Bank on Baglayar Dam. So he said that now I'm retired. So when I look at the Indian media, I look at all the newspapers. I'm almost there's not a comma which is different from in all the papers. It's the same text given by somebody, some deep state of India, and they have to publish it. So you see, when there is no objective feedback from the media, because media is supposed to be a watchdog on the government policies. But if you control so much that it fails, it dies its own death. So I think media in India has died its own death. It has become a robot which is filled up with the stories. So that way, Who loses? The government loses, the leadership loses, because they become the victims of their own propaganda. And that is the worst syndrome that any regime can have it. And first state, a leader can have it. And more often than not, the history tells us that when the leaders, they become known by their own propaganda, that is the beginning of their fall. And I believe me, now I keep thinking about it, but perhaps the beginning of an end of BJP RSS government has just begun. You just watch it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador Sab, for joining us and being a part of this discussion. Farrukh, I'll come to you with reference to, of course, how we see the BJP government and what the ambassador was saying. Is that really the beginning of the end?
You know what, while listening to all three of you, I was just remembering something that came up during India's elections. And there was the slogan, War Rukwadi Papa. I thought that this is the most apt use of that term right now, that phrase. I wish Papa could stop this war as well. But regarding overall situation, Sana, I think that with Indian political politics, there is this problem of people, all of them being opportunists. For example, day before yesterday or 3 days before yesterday, when Modi ji actually announced the caste census, which I think is more important than whatever madness that is going on, because it is going to redo India's very fabric and it can really enhance the country, right? At that time, it was Congress who suddenly got interested in Pahalgam. Why? Because it was their slogan and it was stolen by Modi ji. So now they wanted to give tough time to Modi ji. Right? Today, what happened was Rahul Gandhi was invited to the Prime Minister's office. Right? Although they used a very different pretext, they have the CBI chief who is retiring, so they had to actually appoint a new one. They couldn't agree. Three people actually decide: the CJ, their prime minister. I was going to say army chief, their prime minister, and then Rahul Gandhi, or opposition leader. But they couldn't decide. So essentially, it was about Pahalgam, and it was to lie low, to cool it down. I think that there is possibility that Modi ji really might be trying to migrate from this mental, extremism to a more popular, not populist leader, where he can actually bring about the reform that is needed. And Mohan Bhagwat, when he met the RSS chief, at that time also they said that, oh, now they have actually taken permission from RSS, now they are going to nuke Pakistan, right? The media is crazy. But then we realized that it was about caste census. So there is a possibility that today's interaction might also have been about that. But their media is crazy. And by the way, he was talking about TRPs. Honestly, if everything is controlled in India, why would you not ask for a TRP audit in that country? Because if you can control everything, and even YouTube channel anchors or analysts were afraid, and it was quite visible because they had to repeatedly call for action on Pakistan, then brick by brick dismantling the whole concept of surgical strike, right? With that kind of state of affairs, how is this possible that TRPs are not controlled? If that is so, look, Pakistan is 250 million people, right? But we can honestly say that whatever is shown on our private channels cannot be reflective of the people's sentiment, right? Because it is a big country, 250 million people is not a small deal. So you are telling me that at a drop of hat, 1.4 billion people lose their sensibility all of a sudden? That can't be. So that means that whatever chaos is being shown, it is the ugly face of India's deep state, nothing else. But unfortunately, right now, the way things are going, I don't understand who is calling shots in the deep state. Because as I told you, General Javaid, the army chief, has been snubbed. A corps commander has been sacked. A vice chief of air has been sacked. With all that, and then Modi ji also trying to restrain the situation, and then somebody like Amit Shah actually just playing, dirty, or for that matter, their defense minister is playing dirty. I don't know who's controlling the deep state, because we know the whole idea that RSS somehow is the deep state has been rebutted, because RSS also seems to be interested in caste census.
Absolutely. And Faisal, I remember you still had to add something from the previous hour, so you can do that also. But given the ways, that's all right. Given the ways that we're looking at what is happening within the political elements of India, there's also, of course, the way that that impacts the people of the occupied valley. And we've seen that there is a lot more pressure and a lot more actions by the occupation forces that have further added to their deteriorating lives. And while we talk about de-escalations or the way that the international community can possibly step in, the heart of the issue still remains in the occupied valley. And so I want your take in terms of how then, even if we have some sort of move away from the current stance or the previous stances that India has taken quite immediately after the Pahalgam attack, how will that impact the people of the occupied valley as we're seeing now and in the ways forward with the BJP government still in place?
Yes, and obviously when we talk about people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, of course, right after this, they will be facing the, odious kind of treatment which will be delivered to them. Reason being, according to my knowledge, they are simply going to increase the operations, CRP operations and JK police, and then the Indian rogue military's presence in there, which is nearly 700,000, and including all of the other CRPFs and JK police, that turns out to be 900,000 of the troops, which are of course out there to deal with the people of innocent people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, in this whole scenario, when we talk about people, of course, previously, time to time, they have been, picked up and then questioned and then tortured, and then whoever gets killed, of course, their bodies, as earlier Ambassador G.R. Baluch was highlighting, that a couple of them, they were picked up, questioned, tortured, killed in the process. They simply shot them with a couple of bullets, and they say that they were trying to cross in or cross out of the line of control. So they've been seen and they've been shot dead, and they are being considered as the terrorists. They are not terrorists. They are simply innocent people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this is what the modus operandi is out there, because there is no international media. There is the media which they bring in is the media that is being controlled, once more I would say, by the deep state and the state itself. And Shrivastava group, everyone knows how it works and what kind of modus operandi it is having internationally as well. I mean, we all know about the EU Disinfo Lab, whatever they have been telling about that. Overall situation is going to be very bad for people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Sana, the most important thing which I wanted to highlight here about the deep state and whatever is going on in New Delhi, according to my information, which I got from sources within India, what they believe that when it comes to Indian military officers, of course in the CCS, the committee meetings, the powerful meetings that were supposed to, of course, decide on it, which would have Interior Minister in it, then Prime Minister in it, then Rajnath.
Ulterior Minister also.
Yeah. And then, of course, Rajnath Singh ji, Defense Minister, Raksha Mantral, all of them, they were part of it, National Security Advisor, and then all of the chiefs, and then CDS as well. All of these people, they were there, and of course, they talked about it, and they simply said that we want to attack Pakistan. But as I have mentioned time and again previously as well, I personally have interaction over the phone as well, and in person as well with the Indian high level officers, military officers. I'm talking about the one-star generals, and I have found them to be professional when it comes to waging a war or not waging a war, whether war is good or not good. They have always maintained that militaries are supposed to avoid the wars rather than wage the wars. So to me, according to my understanding, this might be only my understanding, but Indian Army officers, I always expected that in these kind of meetings where they could see that things are being driven by Hindutva ideology, things are being driven by hate-filled ideology, in which everyone just wants to wage a war against the other country, they would have restrained. And I think that's what has happened. People have talked, people who were in charge of a certain area or in charge of a troop or in charge of the whole troops, they have talked about it and they have said that though we have the capability, I'm talking about the Indian generals, Indian side generals, though we have the capability, but this would be madness, utter madness.
But
without
has it
a
happened
probe,
on a scale that has made a difference?
without a probe, if somebody comes and attacks towards Pakistan, this would not be looked at as a professional army. And I think they wanted to safeguard their own reputation as well, the Indian troops. And they have the idea that if they attack to Pakistan, of course Pakistan won't sit back. Pakistan would be repelling their attack, number one, and number two, responding them with even a bigger attack, and they know about it. When there are militaries, of course they have this is the military generals, this is what they do. They have to study the doctrines of the opposite military, what kind of doctrines they have, whether it suits us or not, whether it suits our defenses or not, what's the offensive doctrine the other country is having, and whether we will be able to defend ourselves or not. So in this whole scenario, the professional generals, they sit down and they figure out where do we stand, and they do figure out what our civilian government is doing and what kind of political gimmicks they are playing and what election is coming up. Of course they know that UP election is coming up as well. So they have at the back of their head, they have all of these equations which they have to deal with. And of course they have to be responsible enough. They have to be responsible not for the regional spectrum, but for their own spectrum as well, for their own military as well. So to me, I think they are the deep state. They are part of the deep state, and they have repelled the madness, the utter madness of BJP government, because they very well know that. And previously as well, I remember when Manoj Pandey, when General Pandey was given the supreme seat of Indian military, he became chief of the army staff of Indian military. He was the very first military chief of India who was actually taken from the engineers side. He was engineers corps, and at that time I remember General Mohanty, who was being dubbed as someone who will be taking the supreme slot, but he wasn't given. Even at that time they said, well, General Pandey is from Nagpur, and Nagpur is the headquarter of RSS, and his family and him, they are having very good relations with the RSS, so that's why he has become the supremo of Indian military. Even at that time it was highlighted why RSS ideology, why BJP is interfering in the Indian military. And even now there is a clear line which is being drawn by the Indian military officers and Indian overall armed forces officers, in which they are saying that this kind of divide should not be there. And even one more fact which I wanted to say, in Indian military we have always seen that the Sikh officers, they have always been seen securing the top slot positions, and then at the height of BJP's government, RSS driven BJP government, suddenly we started seeing less turbans in their corps commander conferences. Only one turban was seen. And even that one turban was gone, blown away. This shows that in today's Indian military, I mean, that mechanism or that mantra of that it has nothing to do with the caste system, or it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with somebody being Hindu or Sikh or Muslim, and the Indian military being considered as a military that is a very non religious domain, and it is entirely the nationalistic domain. It has been dubbed in past, but now it is not the case. They had always said that in our country the Rajput regiment, would always have the top leader, or the ones who's actually head of that, the general sitting on the top, that always used to be a Sikh. Sikhs are considered as Jats, so they used to be feeling proud of it.
Yeah.
Rajput regiment is having the leader who's not a Rajput. So these kind of things are not existing there anymore.
Right.
So I think these things, they are being seen by the deep state of India. And this time around, whenever Farrukh talks about the deep state, I agree, fully agree with the Farrukh. Reason being, Farrukh is touching where it really is, being mattered.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it is hurting, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I want your response to that, whether or not
It is
that
hurting
is
them.
happening on that scale where it's actually hurting them, or is it is actually leading to some sort of self-destructive approach that will then eventually lead to some change? Can we hope that?
Yeah, Sana, actually, no, regarding political change, I see no possible.
Okay.
Right? Because Modi ji, whatever, he's a genius when it comes to politicking, right? Whatever was used against him during the 2024 elections, that was caste census and casteism, he has just appropriated it. So you can tell that he is a very smart cookie, right? That is not the question right now. Right now, what you have to actually look at is, in the last 11 years, or maybe more, what has become India's actual weakness? India's biggest weakness, Sana, is that India has a temperament problem now. India has a foreign policy problem because of temperament. Today or yesterday, the foreign minister was in Europe and was bullying European leaders that support us or then shut up, right? Something of that sort. So it actually shows you, and this is what is happening all over the world. Whatever is being said or demanded by Indian government or whosoever there might be, every diplomat is asked to go stir crazy for small increments, right? For example, Modi ji went to America, met President Trump. After that, there was talk about that Rana chap, Tawar Rana, but America was not handing him over. All of a sudden, America's stocks start falling because of trade war. And all of a sudden, we see that something very interesting has happened in treasuries. And somehow, we see all of a sudden suspension of those tariffs to various countries, especially starting with India. And immediately, we see Tawar Rana being handed over to India. So what does it tell you? Extortion. If you are, if you go to Nepal and say you're with us or against us, right? Nepal might have to actually come along because it does not have that kind of power. But when you go to America, when you go to Europe, when you go to Russia, it becomes your weakness, biggest weakness. That is one aspect. The second one is temperament. India also has an intelligence problem. We saw that in Canada, where they killed a chap. In America, where they tried to kill a chap and he survived. Even Australia's national television made a documentary about India's bullying. So intelligence community, and not to talk about our sweet home, our country. Here they had actually accused a person called Amir Sarfraz Tamba, right? Accused him of Sarabjit Singh's murder. And they went and their minders went and killed him at his home. If you claim you have that kind of access and you have that kind of muscle in intelligence, then how can it happen that such a big project like Pahalgam was being planned and you did not know anything, right? That also undermines their own credibility. Then they also have a diaspora problem. India's diaspora in the 10 years of Manmohan Singh had really gained a lot of momentum. And I'm happy about it because they are capable people. They are ruling everywhere, right? But what happened? After Modi ji came, he all of a sudden, or his deep state or whatever it might be, appropriated those people and started blackmailing them and asking them to do more for just this kind of optics. And because of that, all those people in media, they are hiding around at this moment because Indian government says, write this report that India was righteous and Pakistan is wrong. And they have to understand that this is the age of populism, and if they actually raise their head, all of a sudden they will be attacked, right? Remember, Nikki Haley was, from India, right? She was the last Republican challenger during the primary session. The moment she went out, President Biden was pushed out, and then of course we saw Kamala Harris again. At that time, President Trump himself kept saying that she is not black, she is Indian, right? Now, do you think those people who haven't forgiven Hillary Clinton or women for daring to challenge Donald Trump in 2015-16, right? They would forgive any Indian for doing that?
Yeah.
No. So their diaspora is under huge pressure. And I think that Indian government should at least realize what they are asking them to do. But they are pushed towards, this oblivion, and this is sad. So all this amounts to one thing. India's ability, and by the way, remember that Canada episode, America episode, Australia. I kept on saying back then that you are actually annoying Five Eyes because they jealously guard their own turf. And these guys thought that it was Biden's agenda or perhaps Kamala Harris's agenda, and they kept on hitting them. When it was essentially Five Eyes' problem that you have come to our turf and kill people.
Right.
Now, and again, they are geniuses, I tell you. Amazing, right? And this Mr. Beans was one genius, and these are the other ones, right? Look at this, how they have jumped the gun. Once you actually call attention to an incident and blame somebody, some international party, all of a sudden entire world's intelligence start looking at the situation. And you don't have evidence. Even if you had to cook it up, at least you should have procured the evidence and the people. Now if you cook it up, what happens? Somebody actually blows a whistle and says, look, they are cooking the evidence.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the transmission. As always, that's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.